Hello, welcome back to Learn Economia. In this video, what we are going to do is that we will be looking into the most important theories of economic growth and economic development. Specifically, this video would discuss the theory proposed by Adam Smith, the theory proposed by David Ricardo, the theory proposed by Malthus, the theory proposed by Karl Marx, and the theory proposed by J.S. Mill with respect to economic growth and economic development. So these people, the ones who were told in the beginning of this video, that means Adam Smith, Malthus, Ricardo, Mill, etc. These are people who belong to the classical school of thought, and the classical school of thought is something which is popularized by these economists. Even though they were the ones who popularized, formalized, etc., the classical school of thought, that doesn't mean that these people have always similarity in all respects. They too had distinctions in terms of several aspects of economic development. For example, while Malthus and Mill emphasize the demand side of the development, Smith, Ricardo, Say, etc., they propose the supply side of growth. Okay, and their models always concentrate on the supply side. Specifically, we could see that not specifically, in common, we could see that the entire classical theories of economic growth and classical theory of economic development, these are actually two different terms that mean the same thing. Okay, economic growth, economic development, theories, etc., these deal with the same thing only, but we have to understand that there exists a difference between economic growth concept and economic development concept. When economic growth is something which is concentrated on the GDP aspect only or alone, the economic development involves GDP plus structural changes. Coming back to the classical school of economic thought and the theory proposed by the economists who belong to the classical school of thought with respect to economic growth and economic development, these theories in common had certain assumptions. These are: population growth is endogenous. That means that the population growth is something which depends upon the sustenance available to accommodate the increasing workforce in the economy. And the second assumption is investment is also endogenous. Why it is endogenous is because it is determined by the rate of savings. And it also assumed that the land growth was dependent on the conquest of new lands. Also, these classical theories assume that technological progress could also increase with growth. And also, they believed in the existence of perfect competition. This is one of the important assumptions that we could see in almost all the classical school of theories. I mean, perfect competition. And perfect competition, although this is an ideal form of market structure, this is something which is not seen in the practical life. I have done a video on perfect competition in detail. You can go through that and see the assumptions of perfect competition. By going through the assumptions of perfect competition, you will be able to understand that this is something which is very much ideal, and this is not seen in it is very important to see perfect competition in the real life. Okay. Having given you a very brief intro of the classical school of thought, or the classical school of thought with respect to economic growth and economic development, let's start our discussion on each of these theories in detail. First of all, we are going to start with Adam Smith theory of economic development. As we all know, Adam Smith is the father of economics, especially modern economics, and his ideas of economic growth and economic development is actually given in his famous book An Inquiry into the Nature and Cause of Wealth of Nation. And he, as we have already told, is a person who always gave emphasis to the supply side of economic growth. Coming to the main features of Adam Smith theory of economic growth and economic development, we could see that natural law is something which is stressed by Adam Smith. When he says natural law, he always emphasizes the importance of natural law, which will lead to economic growth and economic development. He says he considers that every individual, if he or she is left free, he or she will try to maximize his or her utility. That means that he or she would try to maximize his or her wealth. So if every individual in the economy tries to maximize his or her utility or wealth, what happens is that the total society or the economy in totality will will improve, or the economy in totality would develop, right? So there exists an invisible hand, in Adam Smith words, there exists an invisible hand in the economy, which is the automatic equilibrating mechanism in a perfectly competitive market, and this invisible hand will work in order to maximize the national wealth, right? Okay, so it is when the invisible hand works, there the individual utility or the individual development would transformed into the national development. Next, we are going to discuss a process of capital accumulation. Adam Smith always believed in the division of labor, which will lead to specialization, and he says that it is the division of labor and specialization that will lead to capital accumulation, and this in turn will lead to economic development. But he says that capital accumulation must precede the introduction of division of labor. This is something which he has highlighted. Okay, it is not the other way around. One should precede the other, or the other one should precede the one which we have already discussed. But it is in this way only, it should be in this way only, that is, the capital accumulation must precede the introduction of division of labor. And we know that in Adam Smith theory, there is something called iron law of wages. That means that the classical economists believed in the existence of wage fund. Wage fund is the fund, it is from the wage fund that the laborers are given their wages or their remuneration. The idea was that wages tend to equal to the amount which is necessary for their subsistence. So they will be getting what is known as substance wage. The laborers are paid what is known as a substance wage. If the total wages at any time, if it becomes higher than the substance level, then the labor force would increase, because they would be attracted by more wages in the economy, or the wages in the economy is when it is above the substance level, that means that there is a rise in the wage rate. So the laborers, they would be attracted by this wage rate, and they will come forward to go for employment, right? So in this case, competition for the employment would become keener, and wages will gradually come down to the substance level. It is the drive to get more wages that the laborers would be attracted to the labor market, and they will be taking up employment. And at last, what happens is that gradually this process will lead to the reduction in the wages, and as a result, the wage will come to the past substance level wages. Okay. Then the next important aspect is investment. We know that in Adam Smith theory of growth, it is the capitalists rather than the laborers who make investment. Laborers cannot make investment because they get what is known as substance wage, and which would be enough, which would be only enough for their consumption needs and all. So it is the capitalists who get profits from their accumulation and all, and so as a result, what they do is that they go for investment. Why they go for investment is that they need profit, and it is for profit that they go for investment. And as per Smith, profit tend to fall with economic progress when the rate of capital accumulation increases. Increase in competitions among the capitals would lead to reduction in profit, and as a result, what happens is that entrepreneurs would face many problems in the economy when they have lower profit. Then Adam Smith also specified the role of interest rate in the economy, which lead to economic upliftment or development. He says that with a fall in the interest rate, money lenders will lend more. Why they are lending more? Because it would be profitable for them to lend more. More people will be coming to get money from the money lender, so they will be lending more money at a lower rate of interest rate. So the quantity of capital for lending will increase with the fall in the interest rate. But what happens is that if the interest rate, when it falls considerably, the money lenders would be unable to lend more in order to earn more to maintain their standard of living. So under these kinds of situations, what happens is that they will start investing, and they will become entrepreneurs. Thus, even with a fall in the rate of interest, there is an increase in capital accumulation. The end result is that when capital accumulation increases, this leads to economic progress. Next, Adam Smith identifies certain agents of economic growth. As per him, farmers, producers, and businessmen are the agents of progress or economic growth. They will be doing their own duties, they will be having their own working mechanism, they will be having their own functions in the economy, and the functions of these laborers or producers or businessmen, and these are interrelated. As per Smith, development of agriculture is something which lead to increase in the production in the construction works, commerce, etc. So these kinds of forward and backward linkages in the economy will lead to what is known as economic growth or economic development. Also, it is important to note that as against or unlike many other economists, Adam Smith could understand the shortage of natural resources as a hindrance to economic growth. As per him, the process of economic growth is cumulative. That is something which he had already agreed. But that doesn't mean that this growth process is endless. Okay, it cannot go on for long. Why it can't go on? It is because there exists scarcity of economic resources, and this would act as a hindrance, and it would finally stop economic growth. Competition among businessmen would bring profit as low as possible in this situation. What happens when there is a fall in the profit? If profit fall, this would continue to fall, right? So investment would also fall. It is out of the profit that capitalists make their investment. So when profit fall, investment would also start falling, which will result in the capitalism to reach a stationary state. Okay, this stationary state is a particular period when there is low profit, there is low production, etc. So when this happens, what happens is that the capital accumulation also would stop. There won't be any kind of investment happening. The population, etc., will be facing problems. The wages would be the subsistence wage rate in the economy. There cannot be any increase over the subsistence wage rate. There is no change in the per capita income as well as production in the economy. As a result, there will be a period of stagnation. Okay, so that's all about the Adam Smith theory of economic growth and economic development. I hope you could understand the main crux of the theory. And with that, we are moving to the next theory, that is the Ricardian theory of economic growth or Ricardian theory of economic development. Ricardo, he is a very famous economist. He had presented his view of economic development in his book, The Principles of Political Economy and Taxations. We have to understand that, like Smith, Ricardo never propounded any theory of economic development. When we say Ricardian theory of economic development, it is actually his theory of economic distribution. It is through his theory of economic distribution that he propounded his theory of economic development. Okay, but we have to understand that Smith economic model of development, it is something that is considered to be the predominant model of the classical theory of economic growth and economic development. Coming back to David Ricardo specifically, what he has done is that he has modified Smithian theory of economic development by using a certain new going for certain additional inputs in his theory. What he has done is that he has incorporated many new aspects into his theory, and one of it is known as diminishing returns to land. Before discussing in detail the diminishing returns to land, we are going to see the assumptions of Ricardian theory of economic development. First of all, his theory is actually concentrated on land, rent, etc. Okay, so he believed that, or he assumed that all land is used for production of corn, and then he assumed that law of diminishing returns operates in land. Then he believed that what does law of diminishing returns means? When we go on consuming more and more of a commodity, the returns from the when we go on using more and more of a land, a piece of land, the returns from that particular piece would diminish. Okay, so that's all about the law of diminishing returns to land. Now, supply of land is fixed. This is something which is right? because we cannot increase the supply of land. We cannot go beyond earth to cultivate and all. So whatever, how much land available on earth is something that is available for cultivation. How much ever is available for land, available for cultivation in earth is, it is the only land we have. We cannot go beyond that, right? So that's all about the supply of land is fixed. Then labor and capital are variable inputs. Here capital also is considered as a variable input. Okay, and the state of technological knowledge is given, and also all workers are paid substance wage. As in the case of Adam Smith, here also we are assuming that the laborers are paid their substance wage. Then supply price and labor is something which is considered as constant. Supply price and labor are considered as constant, and labor demand for labor depends upon accumulation. Here accumulations mean capital accumulations. Then capital accumulation results from profit, and there is perfect competition. So the assumptions are all more or less similar to what we have discussed in the Adam Smith case, but the new additions here is with respect to diminishing returns, the use of land, etc. Right. Now, as in the case of Adam Smith, this theory, the Ricardo model too, had got certain important features. Ricardo model is it is something which is based on the interrelation of three groups of economy. We have already discussed the groups. These are landlord, capitalists, and laborers. In the words of Adam Smith, it is something which is different, but almost the same thing only, like farmers, capitalists, etc. So almost the same thing only. So these people, they whatever they do, that would affect the other group. Whatever the landlord do, that would affect the capitalists and laborers. Whatever the laborers do, that will affect the capitalists and landlords. Okay, so their actions are interrelated. Coming to the importance of rent, profit, and wages, rent, as we all know, it is a portion of produce of earth which is paid to the landlord. Why it is paid to the landlord? Because we are using the original and indestructible powers of soil. So for that we are giving a remuneration to the landlord. That is not as a rent. So it is also considered as the difference between the average and marginal product. Okay, if all land had the same properties of unlimited in supply and uniform in quality, no change would make in its use. But we know that all land are not in the same quality. The quality differs, right? The wage rate, it is something which is we have to understand in detail in this theory as well. It is actually something which is determined by the wage fund. And how wage rate is determined? Wage fund divided by the number of workers employed at the subsistence level, and this is what determines your wage rate in the economy. As per Ricardo, out of the total corn produced, rent has the first right. I mean, the first share goes to rent, and the residual is distributed between wage and profit, while the interest is included in profit. Okay, we have seen that there are three sets of people in the economy: landlords, capitalists, and laborers, and the first share of the produce will go as rent, and the remaining would be distributed between wage and profit. Okay, now coming to the importance of capital accumulation, we could see that Ricardo too had stressed the importance of capital accumulation, in which will lead to economic growth, and he says that capital formation is something which depends upon the willingness to save and the capacity to save. Okay, and the larger the surplus, there would be larger profit, and as a result of larger profit, there would be more capital accumulation in the economy. The profit rate, it is something which is considered as something which is equal to the ratio of profit to the capital employed. But the since it consists of only the working capital, it is equal to the wage bill. So long as the profit is positive, capital accumulation would take place, because for engaging in the next level of production, they will invest a portion of the profit for the next round of production. And in reality, profit depends upon wages, and wages is something which influences the price of corn as well, right? Now coming to the importance of wage rate, we could see that as in the case of Adam Smith theory of economic development, the wages workers are paid the subsistence wage, and as the demand for food increases, less fertile land is also brought under cultivation, and wages would rise, because for cultivation we need more laborers, right? So the demand for laborers would increase. When the demand for laborers increases, what happens is that the price paid to laborers, that is the wages, this would increase, and the increase in the price and price of the and this is reflected, the increase in the wage rate is reflected in the increase in the price of corn. In this situation, rent also would increase. With the decline of capitalist profit, capital accumulation would also decline. Why it is declining? The profit, the first share of profit is gone as rent, that is increasing, wage rate is increasing, everything is increasing. So so what happens is capital accumulation would decline. Um, the profit for the farmer, profit of the farmer would regulate the profit of all other trades, and therefore the money rate of profit earned on capital must be equal both in agriculture and industries. This here we are going to see the linkage effect and all. Coming specifically to capital accumulation, we could see that capital is it is something which could be increased by an increased production or by a diminished unproductive consumption. However, productivity of labor might be increased through technological changes, better organization, etc. He also specified the importance of taxes. As per him, it is an important source of capital accumulation, especially the government is concerned. Okay, as far as government is concerned, taxes are very important for capital accumulation, and these are to be levied to reduce the conspicuous consumption. Okay, luxury consumption, and otherwise the imposition of taxes on capitalists, landlords, laborers, etc. will transfer resources from these groups to the government, and this may lead to some kind of adverse impact on investment. So he says that taxes, it is not that good. It is not that good to promote taxes beyond a limit, and also there should be free trade in the economy. He always favored free trade in the economy, and he says that capital accumulation would be very high if we are able to promote free trade. Okay, as in the case of Adams, where Ricardo too agreed to a condition of stationary state. He says that there is a natural tendency for the economy to go to a period of stationary state. That means that the rate of profit will fall so that the country ultimately reaches what is known as a stationary state. When capital accumulation rises, what happens is that there would be increase in profit, production would increase, wage fund would increase, population would increase, and as a result, the demand for corn would increase and the price of corn would increase. When inferior grade of land is also cultivated, rent on superior land would increase, and this would reduce the share of capitalists and laborers, and profit would decline. Wages would decline to the substance level. The process of rising rent and falling profit would continue till what? Till what? It will continue till the output from the marginal land just covers the wages paid to the laborers. So there won't be any increase in the population when these people are paid their substance wages. There won't be increase in wage rate. There won't be increase in rent, etc. Sorry, the rent would remain high. Okay, the rent would remain high because we are taking the second grade land as well for cultivation. So as a result, there would be economic stagnation. Having discussed the Ricardian theory, also we are going to see the Malthusian theory of economic development. We have understood we know why Malthus is very important in economic growth and development. He has proposed his theories by linking it to the population growth. Sorry. So, coming to the Malthusian theory of economic development, he is a person who had short appreciation than many people in his period or many of his contemporaries, because his famous work is very much celebrated because that much impact it had on the economy. He says that the actual population growth is kept in line with the food supply by positive checks and preventive checks. Both are characterized by misery and vice. He says that it's very important to control the population, whether we are going for a positive check or a or a preventive check, that doesn't matter. But what we have to do is that we have to control the population in check. Okay. His hypothesis implied that the actual population always had a tendency to push above the food supply. If it happens, what it results is that starvation in the economy. So As a result, any attempt to deal with this condition of lower classes by increasing their incomes or improving agricultural productivity would be fruitless, as an extra means of subsistence would be completely absorbed by an induced boost in population. So, whatever we do, we have to first of all concentrate on the population. We have to first of all control the population. Then only whatever changes or whatever policies we implement would reach its goal. So he says that there is nothing automatic about economic growth. Uh, he says that population growth, despite the strength of psychological and physiological forces trying to bring down, this is an end product of the whole economic process. So he says that mere increases in numbers do not provide any stimulus to the economic expansion. So a man whose only possession is his labor, okay, and in demand by those who have the disposable of produce. This is something which is common in today's world as well. His only possession is labor, and if someone is demanding his labor, he will be getting money. And the demand for labor in turn depends upon the capital accumulation. Coming specifically to the main features of this theory, we can see that the effective demand is one of the important topics proposed by Malthus. And he say that saving in the sense of planned or extended saving, it means not consuming, and not consuming itself brings a declining in the effective demand, profit, investment, etc., and ultimately this will lead to lower development in the economy. Malthus drew attention towards a circularity of a kind of quite different from the one spelled out by other classical economics like Kaleski and all. And then he told about national income as well. He says that the national income is something which is generated by investment, capital accumulation, etc. And profits are national income less wages, and wages equals workers' consumption. And so according to Malthus, profit are equal to investment plus capitalist consumption. Coming to the role of capital, also he had his own ideas. He told that a concept of optimum propensity to save. So this is a new concept introduced by Malthus, which means up to a certain point saving is needed to finance, right? And the investment, finance the investment, and this is for which profitable opportunities exist. But if you go beyond that point, what happens is that saving would come down, consumer spending to such an extent that investment too will be discouraged. High rates of growth do not occur. So there will be problem. Like Smith, Ricardo, etc. Malthus too believed in the free enterprises, and he considered that wealth effects of free trade, it is something which is really high. Coming to the structural change aspect, Marx argued that the technological progress tend to increase employment opportunities in the economy, and that tapering of the growth of income and output causes unemployment situation in the economy. He had made certain suggestions to deal with the same, and he says that land reform, it is one of the ways that could be used to expand the output in the economy. And he says that we could go for agricultural expansion, industrial expansion, etc., and these will trigger economic growth. He had a picture of economic development in his mind, and he told that the diminishing returns to increase diminishing returns is very much important to increase employment on land. So I mean, diminishing returns is something which we have to take into consideration in order to increase the employment on land. And this could be avoided only if the technological progress in the industrial sector was rapid enough. Okay. And if technological process is neutral, the capital output ratio can be considered as constant, and the second terms would drop off. As per him, the trend of industrial output through time depends only on the rate of capital accumulation in the industrial sector. The rate of investment in turn depends upon the level of profit. Okay. He also makes some suggestions about the sectoral interactions in the underdeveloped area. First of all, he points out that each sector constitutes the market for output of other sector. That means the agriculture sector is helping the industrial sector. The raw materials, the final products in the agriculture sector is taken as a raw materials for the industrial sector, and vice versa. I mean, there is some kind of sectoral interaction. And development of agriculture sector of underdeveloped countries is limited by the poverty of agriculture sector. Okay, and if this poverty continues, what happens is that poverty would lead to problems in the economy, and there would be limitations in the economy. There would be lack of capital in the economy. This would be acting as hindrances to efficient cultivation, and as a result, the industrial sector too would suffer. The bulk of population, meanwhile, lives in poverty by the means of labor-intensive peasant agriculture, which provides more effective demand for further growth because they are getting subsistence income only. Okay, with that we are moving into the next model. What is the model proposed by J.S. Mill? He recognized the relevance of political economy, and he was a more subtle and original political economist. He had some kind of refined ideas. He says that he presented his ideas in a very orderly manner. He recognized the limited quantity and productiveness of land, and he introduced the diminishing returns as the most important proposition in the political economy. We have seen the concept used by David Ricardo as well, right? Now, with respect to the investment and technology, he says that um, uh, uh, there is a possibility of a decline in the unit labor cost with the rising wage rate, and he views his views on investment process were considered as something which is incomplete by economists like Schumpeter. Coming to the working force, we could see that he favored a sustained public policy to encourage smaller families' efforts to popular education and ultimately movement to a higher income per capita stationary state. He had some thoughts on business cycles as well, and he says that there is some kind of irrational expectations. He believed that since the calculations of producers and traders are imperfect, not all the time, it can be imperfect at certain times, right? So there are always some commodities which are more or less in excess, and some are in deficiency. So no, we are not producing everything in a balanced manner. Some would go as excess, some would go as scarce. So Mill had a clear sense that almost all periodical cycles had been underway in which the investment decisions made by the individuals operating without full knowledge of the investment decisions of the others and acting in response to the same signals of future loss. I mean, I do not know the investment decisions of other people, and these people do not know my decision. So as a result, there is some kind of information asymmetry. So this is something which will lead to some kind of loss. Okay, some kind of loss situation. And we know this roster of stages of economic growth, right? And this is something, and George Stuart Mill too had some kind of arguments with this kind of stages of economic growth, and his stationary state idea was actually, and he had some arguments with other people with respect to the idea of stationary state as well. And he says that J.S. Mill states that stationary state is a virtue that had the possibilities opened up in general and elevation of intellectual and social position of the working class by birth control. Okay, so with that we move on to the final one, that is a Marxian theory of economic development. This is one of the most celebrated theories of economic development. His ideas were put forward in his famous work, The Das Kapital. And this person, Marx, he had many arguments with many of the other classical economists like Adam Smith, Ricardo, etc. And also we could see that Marxian theory is a bit different from the other theories, other classical theories. He had used many new terms in his theories. So the first one is the organic composition of capital. So what is the organic composition of capital? We have to understand this. Like classical economists, Marx believed that there is declining rate of profit over the long term. That means that the growth process is not an endless thing. There would be a declining process. There will be a declining period as well. A declining period will be coming. And he believed the long run tendency for the rate of profit to decline is brought about not by competition, as in the case of other economists. This person has not favored what is known as increase in wages, but he says that it happens as a result of rising organic composition of capital. It is not because of increasing wages or something else that the rate of profit is coming down, but it is just due to the organic composition of rising organic composition of capital that the problem comes. He defined the organic composition of capital as the ratio of what he called as a constant capital to variable capital. Okay. Then he says that exploitation rate would, when it is fixed, while organic composition of capital, when it increases, what we have is that the profit would decline, and there is more exploitation happening. The one section of population would be exploiting the other section, that is the labor is being exploited in the economy. So this, if it goes on, what happens is that there will be a stationary state in the economy. So that's all for today. Please like, share and subscribe to this channel for more videos, and be a part of my Telegram channel and Telegram group to discuss your doubts. I'll be providing the links of both in my description box. That's all for today. Thank you.